In this week's blood-splattered episode of Berserk, Guts slaughters Mozgus' torturers, which have transformed into hellish angels. And the egg-shaped apostle has big plans for a massive sacrificial ceremony, which will see the return of the God Hand, as well as a certain former leader of the Band of the Hawk. This week's episode of Berserk was fantastic. It was like a 20-minute long metal music video. Just so many memorable scenes, not to mention that this episode is a fantastic build-up to the finale of this season. Some real crazy shit is really getting ready to go down, and you can tell that things are getting insane because one of the main villains of this arc is an apostle, which actually takes the form of a crimson behelit. It's an egg-shaped apostle, which is planning this big ceremony, which is going to bring in the God Hand as well as Griffith himself. That is right. And all of the people around St. Albion are about to be sacrificed in order for this big ceremony to take place. And while all of this is going on, you also have the Skull Knight who's kicking all sorts of ass. You have Guts who's fighting against Mozgus' torturers. And then there's Mozgus himself who has attained the power of an apostle. And although he feels that this is a gift from God, it's not. And he's actually swept up in this massive plan. What I will say is this episode right here had some amazingly atmospheric moments and a lot of just great singular moments as well. Guts fighting against Mozgus' torturers was just satisfying as all hell and incredibly brutal. I love the fact that he's not only using his sword, but he's also using the cannon, which is located in his prosthetic hand, to actually increase the momentum of his attacks, which allows him to swing his sword even faster, making it even more powerful as it plows into the bodies of these Hell's Angels. This action scene where he fights against them at the top of the tower was freaking brutal and awesome. I also really love the fact that Mozgus' torturers also have some other cool abilities as well, aside from the fact that they of course have angel wings and they have all of their default abilities from before. Case in point, the bird mask dude. I love the fact that he can like fire these really sharp feathers at people, and Guts even allows himself to get these things stuck in his face just so that he can get close enough to this guy to break through his weapon and frickin' decapitate him. And he doesn't so much decapitate him as he, well, let me just quote Sin City on this one. Guts basically turns the bird-headed guy into a Pez dispenser. The other torturers don't really fare too well either. A lot of them are straight up just completely cut through, or there's even that one big baby-faced angel-looking guy who has his legs and wings cut off. It's all brutal, it's all awesome, and it's all here in this week's action-packed episode of Berserk. Aside from that, we also get some really cool scenes from the Skull Knight, who always manages to just steal the scene whenever he appears on the screen. It's hard not to want to like this character because he's just a cool, kick-ass metallic Skull Knight, but still, he's a kick-ass, cool, metallic Skull Knight. What more can I say? I love the fact that he's actually going out his way to actually save Luca, who's been kidnapped by the egg-shaped apostle. And this is where we get to learn a little bit more about his backstory, where basically he was an outcast of St. Albion. He was basically the golem of the village, and he lived in this pit where all of these dead people were thrown, and he was basically crushed by a mountain of corpses, when suddenly he found one of those rare little egg-shaped behilits, which allowed him to make a contract with the God Hand, which transformed him into the creature that you see in this episode. However, the God Hand have really big plans for this guy, and that's all going to come to fruition in the next couple of episodes. I don't want to spoil it for people who do not read the manga, but safe to say, some real crazy shit's about to go down, especially because a lot of the big villains are getting ready to return to the series, and there's a lot of great symbolism for that in this episode, like the fact that all of the destruction at the Tower of Conviction has caused it to start to crumble, and it actually takes the form of a massive hand. Not only that, but you get to see that all of these festering evil spirits have actually taken over the body of Mozgus' torturers, and have actually taken the form of the God Hand themselves. Guts, as much as he wants to, he tries to kill them, but he simply just doesn't have the power to do that quite yet, while everyone in St. Albion is just being swallowed up by all of this evil. The Holy Iron Chain Knights are trying to fight back against them. Even Mozgus is using his God's breath, which is basically him just spewing fire, trying to attack all of this thing. You have so many different factions fighting each other, and they have no idea all of the crazy shit that's getting ready to go down with them. Not to mention Casca is about to be burned at the stake, so Guts is trying to do everything in his power to make sure that none of that shit's going to go down. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Berserk? This was probably, I think, one of the better episodes from the series, and a fantastic build-up to the finale of this arc, which I can already tell is going to leave a lot of manga fans pissed off, but only because of the way that it's going to end. In many senses, it's very similar to the Berserk anime series from the mid-90s, where they're going to end at this point that is just really annoying. It's going to be like the ultimate cliffhanger, and I can't wait to see people's reactions to this. That being said, I still think it's going to be a good, nice stopping point. Maybe if they pick up in the future, they could pick up immediately from where this arc is going to end. Not to mention, next week's episode is just going to be awesome. Just look at the preview for it. Guts is going to be throwing down with Father Mozgus, and it looks like he's going to be going through some changes, to say the least. As far as like a favorite scene from this episode, it's really hard to choose. I mean, obviously I'm an action junkie. I really love the sequence of Guts fighting against the Hell's Angels. I thought that was really impressive and had a lot of impact and damage behind it. Just every single time he swings his sword into one of those creatures, you just feel all of the power from his swings. It's so amazing how they're able to do that with these really big, epic camera sweeps, just making his sword seem impossibly difficult to actually pick up, and yet he manages to always swing it around with such gusto. Watching Guts fight is definitely one of the highlights of this series, and then again there's Skull Knight as well, who's a very different character in just the way that he moves in battles, but damn if he still isn't my favorite character from the series. He's so mysterious and enigmatic, and you don't really know what he's truly doing, especially that scene where he saves Luca and he finds one of the Behelits and actually eats it. This is all a part of his big plan, which unfortunately they're not really going to get into too much in this season, and if they never do animate it again, then that's all going to be a complete mystery for people, so read the manga, bitches! For people who read the manga, they know exactly what's going to be going on here. For people who only watch the anime version, I can only imagine what's going on in your head at the moment, especially because this is all a big build-up to some sort of massive ceremony, an eclipse, if you will. An event that we've seen previous in the series, however, this one's going to have some very different repercussions, as the world is going to go about a very big change due to the arrival of a certain person. And man, can I not wait to see that. I still love the villain of Father Mozgus. I still think it's really crazy that he's holding on to his religion after seeing all of this crazy shit. He still believes that his powers were bestowed upon him by God, and he actually utilizes them to fight against all of the creepy spirits in this episode, which are still incredibly disturbing looking, just like these massive blobs of pure evil. Not to mention when they actually infect people, they essentially just turn them into zombies. There's a real creepy scene where there's this one little girl living in the village with her family, and she pretty much gets killed off-screen by her parents, and it's just plain fucked up, to say the least. And everything is converging on the Tower of Conviction, and it seems like everything is going a plan for the egg-shaped apostle. So this was a great episode of Berserk, in my humble opinion. Action-packed, super atmospheric, lots of mysterious things going on, some big teasing for the finale. It was just a fantastic episode, and you should definitely check it out if you're a fan of this brand new Berserk anime series. So I'm going to give this episode right here a 4 out of 5. I'm going to drop it down just a little bit because, again, even though I do like the series, there are still some moments which just look crappy. A lot of those are mostly the CG moments. They don't always look bad, but there's always a few moments that just really turn me off and sort of take me out of the experience. That being said, this episode still delivered on the action, the atmosphere, and even a little bit of comedy from Isidro and Puck, like when they tried to attack Father Mozgus. That didn't work out for them. So there it is, that's my thoughts on this week's episode of Berserk, but before you guys leave today, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. Did you like this episode? Did you not like this episode? Did you have a favorite scene? Maybe Guts fighting against the Hell's Angels? Maybe Skull Knight just acting like a badass? What do you hope to see from the last couple episodes of this season of Berserk? Please tell me in the comments section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and to smash that like button. You guys should also follow us on social media. You'll be able to find links for all that cool stuff in the description box below. Thank you guys again for watching. And as always, stay dandy, baby.